Thank you. Thank you for giving sense to this session with your presence. We are overwhelmed to have a full room. I'm super, super excited to be presenting with Fujitsu, a partner that I have been working with, I don't know how many years, more than I can recognize. So we would like to remind a little bit about the strong relationship and partnership we have together first.
Yeah. So just one quick word, and let me just briefly introduce myself because I wasn't in the keynote this morning. My name is Lee Swartz. I'm leading solutions and services go-to-market for Fujitsu's infrastructure business in Europe. And really what that means is that we build solutions to our customers' challenges, normally on a one-by-one or one-to-small group basis. And then we take those solutions and we try and productize them and package them and standardize them into something that would then help the mainstream. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about a little bit today with our private GPT solution, which Glenn mentioned a little bit in his keynote pitch. And indeed, as was said in the keynote, we're celebrating 25 years of partnership with SUSE, which is wonderful, absolutely fantastic achievement. And everything we talk about today is co-engineered between Fujitsu and SUSE in terms of what we're going to talk about today. Anything you would add?
Who had fun yesterday? Good. Who was in the keynote today? Oh, okay. Then I can refer to the keynote and probably jump on some aspects that otherwise would be repetitive. But, well, I would do a summary for the exceptions that had so much fun that couldn't be in the keynote. Anyway, yeah, let's go ahead. So, yeah, we are going to see, I said in the keynote, we do what we say. So you are going to see today the materialization of choice. So two big players in the market giving you choice with a very similar use case. So, yeah, you will see two solutions, the SUSE AI and Fujitsu
Private GPT. Indeed.
There you go, Private GPT. And we will explain how they differentiate, what they have in common, and then it will be your choice.
So I won't labor this point because I think it's probably been made to death already. But I think probably the reason this room is full is because of ChatGPT. And I think the huge interest that is there on this topic today. I would just make 2 points. I think ChatGPT did two things. It kind of made AI and application of AI available to everybody, to users and to people, and not just data scientists. And it made the adoption of the technology much, much faster. And just by show of hands, I guess most of you have probably used ChatGPT, but how many of you are using it productively in your private lives or your professional lives? Okay, maybe 50%.
And how many of you have it approved in your company to be able to use it? Not your direct boss, but generally deploy in your company, having passed all the blessings of your company.
Okay, some.
A few, but not so many.
Not so many, but that's very interesting. And sort of the sign of that adoption, and we use this slide quite a lot just to showcase how fast this came into the mainstream versus, I don't know if this is the Facebook generation or the TikTok generation or maybe somewhere in the middle, but just as a bit of a comparison of really how quickly this came at us. So 2 months to 100 million monthly active users is pretty impressive. And the best thing about this, in my opinion, is that this hype that was generated because of ChatGPT is more than just hype. It is real. It really can generate a lot of business value. And to articulate that a little bit in terms of what it means today versus tomorrow, I suppose what we're talking about here is the difference between relying on one person with one set of experiences, one set of knowledge, one gut feeling, which is how a lot of us are making our decisions on a daily basis. But critically, it's that person's access to knowledge or information. And the limitations, I suppose, of that person being able to find quickly the knowledge that they need, where it's stored, which page it's on, all of these kind of factors. And I suppose what this means for us is, as users, as individuals, I find the best example is in the customer service environment. So when you call up your energy company or your electricity company or whomever it is, the person you talk to and their ability to find the right knowledge for you directly impacts your customer experience. And that is sometimes then inconsistent. And what we're talking about in the future is augmenting that person, still reliant on their experiences, their skills, their gut feelings, but augmenting that with a standardized knowledge base where they can then access the same level of information as everybody else in the company. So to use that, again, that customer experience example, that customer service example, you should have a much more standardized level of customer service. There is a new skill that is very relevant there, and that is the ability to use generative AI and a company's ability to strategically use generative AI in the organization. And the other really good example we use here, and Glenn talked about this a little bit in the keynote, is in the legal field. We have numerous POCs with law companies at the moment, helping them do exactly that, enable consistent access to the relevant information for the cases that people are working on. And with all types of AI, we always get this question, is this going to replace people? And I think the answer in this case is no, but I think generative AI-enabled people will replace people who are not enabled by generative AI. And we have quite a lot of examples where, let's say, people without the same very, very high knowledge with a generative AI model can outperform people with a very high level of knowledge who are just using their own brain. And that is a big realization I think a lot of companies are going through right now. Good. And this was also said in the keynote, so I won't labor this point, but this is the challenge. And that question about where ChatGPT is allowed in work today is a really critical one. And we love this little emoji. This is Pac-Man gobbling up all of the sensitive data of all the organizations that are using these models without the right level of governance attached. There was a very big, I'm sure many of you know of it, a very big case of this with Samsung last year, where somebody uploaded one of the code bases and a few internal memos to ChatGPT, trying to do the right thing, trying to improve the product, but then as soon as that information goes out there, it's out there, and there's no way to get it back. So this is something that is extremely important, and I think one of the things that the solutions we're talking about today aim to address. The other thing here is, with all cloud services, they go down, right? So this was just last week. 3 of the big Gen AI models all went down at the same time, which it was said a little bit in the keynote today, but when you are strategically using these models in your business, this can be a big challenge. And I think the difference here is models which are primarily designed to be for consumers to use, will not have the same level of uptime and availability as enterprise-grade models. And I think that's really the purpose and the point of this piece. Pilar, over to you.
Yeah, there are some challenges about that, the use of generative AI, because basically, as it happened in other technologies, we find a lot of shadow AI. And I also found that because I guide the internal use of AI in SUSE. So basically, it's amazing to see how many received of credit cards being expensed and so on, right? So yeah, natural language availability everywhere should be the reality, and it's not there. The cost of AI and token thing, and that I covered this morning is, and then specialized resources. Compliance is a key thing. I mean, many of my peers in companies doing AI say, well, I have many ideas for use cases, but I spend my time running through compliance, privacy officer, and security. So they cannot really do it and deploy it with the right speed. Vendor lock-in is something we don't like in open source. Real-time and also culture, right? We replace tasks, not jobs. We just are replacing, the robot things that we had been doing and that probably we don't like doing them so much, so that we can be more empowered and apply the benefit of time saving to something that is more valuable. So we see a shift in the market. At the moment, we see that the majority of the market in Gen AI is using OpenAI, and that is what the surveys are saying. And 82% of the customers will move to open source in generative AI. either hybrid or full open source. So that means that there is a big shift that is happening towards open source, and the key driver of that is control, as normally it is in open source. Also, the cost is another driver, but it goes behind the control, the need for control. So we reflect that also in the big players.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So in developing the solution we're going to talk to you about today, as I mentioned, we typically develop these things for individual use cases. That's kind of our model, is to be very customer challenge led, and then we hopefully get solutions that at the end we can productize and sell. And these are really the four things that came out of the initial investigation we did when we were looking at how to address this market. I think we've touched on most of these, but let me just give a couple of concrete examples. So this point around data sovereign and protected, this is twofold, really. So this is, typically speaking, on-prem. So what we've developed is on-prem in a data center, controlled by physically controlled and protected, but also control of the data. So ability to keep it up to date, to remove it if it's the wrong one, to control who has access to which data is critically important within organizations. So just having it on-prem isn't necessarily the answer. It's doing that with the right level of data control. Cost efficiency, you mentioned the token thing. We had a big feedback from CIOs that they absolutely hate this pricing model. I don't know if many of you in the room would feel the same, where they're typically done, for those of you who aren't aware, with kind of a standard subscription model. You pay for the service and then you pay for additional tokens. And tokens can be queries, they can be text lengths, they can be a number of different things. But essentially that means that there is a variable cost of usage which cannot be accounted for at the beginning of the budgeting process. And the big challenge that the CIOs we spoke to have with this is that it limits adoption of the technology you're trying to make available. Because if people are sensitive about how much it's going to cost to put a query in, people won't play with the system. And actually, in our experiences, where these bed in really well in organizations is where you let the users play and ask the stupid questions and have a bit of fun with it, because then you start to learn how it responds and then you start to trust the system. A real example of this token thing, so the chap in our team at Fujitsu who's running our AI incubator, who's not here unfortunately, but he was using a model over the weekend, and over a 2-hour period racked up €8 of charges, which doesn't sound like a lot. €8 is not much. But if you scale that across an organization of uncontrolled spend, that really can add up quite quickly. So we try to address this. Energy efficiency, and this basically just comes from configurations used, right, and making sure you don't over-spec. I think there is a huge focus, and will continue to be a huge focus, on the energy efficiency of data centers. We could talk. We could do a whole session on this, but not for today. But typically speaking, it's getting around maybe this misconception that to run AI on-prem, you need very, very big, very expensive, and lots of servers, which if you choose the right model and you choose the right way forward, isn't necessarily the case. So we try to do this to address that and make this as lightweight and simple as possible. And again, that's that final point, simplicity. When you can just log on, I mean, I have Perplexity on my phone. This is the one I use. You literally download an app and you can be away to go. Having a very long deployment cycle, configurations, testing, all of these things is really an inhibitor in this market. You need to be able to move really fast to show ROI and also make sure you're not left behind. So these are the things we really try and address.
Yeah, so basically we present this solution, these two solutions, that is the private GPT from Fujitsu and the private AI. Basically it's about taking control of your AI workloads and data fully, locally and private. And
that would be probably where we now start to talk about the individual models. And there are some commonalities between these. So you can see at the bottom of here, both of these models, once we go through the early adopter program and such, will be available on Fujitsu on-premises infrastructure. So we can deploy both of these on-prem. I know SUSE AI can also be deployed in the cloud. They're both fully open source, and they're using fully open source components all the way through the stacks, all the way through the systems. They are designed to be private, hence the customer feedback. Both can be air-gapped as well, so you can disconnect them from the internet and really run them off the grid if you so wish. And they are made to be simple, so ready to deploy very, very, very quickly. The key difference, and if I just focus on the private GPT, and then Pilar, you can cover some of the private AI or the SUSE AI version, is basically the inclusion of an LLM. That's the main difference between these two things. Private GPT, we developed with some of our ecosystem partners here in Germany, and it comes inclusive of a large language model. We use Mistral, a variant of it, and we can talk about the details. There is a technical session on this also tomorrow. So what you receive for Private GPT is a GUI, which I'm going to show after the slides, where you can just bring data, and you're just uploading data and you're chatting with your data very, very quickly. And we position the Private GPT solution more towards the mid-market, or departments of large enterprises. But this solution, as you can see, is at the moment, as we have it configured, is limited to 300 concurrent users. So by no means small, that's 300 people querying at one time, but not designed for extremely large rollouts. That's where we would leverage something like SUSE AI or another solution. So maybe just 2 words on the SUSE solution.
So yeah, this Fujitsu solution is a full stack, which is convenient for many customers who just want to have this quickly up and running, full stack, including the hardware. We can run also SUSE AI, as Lee mentioned, on-prem or in the cloud. You can bring your own LLM on SUSE AI, and it's fully modular, so you can exchange components. It's enterprise ready in terms of enterprise class security with NeVector, behavioral security, access control, zero trust, and scalable. Unlimited users, scalable, I would say, because there's nothing in this world as unlimited. When I see in the supermarket limited production, yes, of course. Yeah. But these are the 2 options that we materialize in terms of choice. So you can have these 2 choices in the market, which we believe they are useful for most use cases of generative AI.
And again, I think it goes without saying because we're at SUSECon, but both are powered by SUSE software underneath. A quick word on how we position generative AI within Fujitsu. So on the right-hand side of this slide, we essentially have 3 offerings. We have our Private GPT solution, which is our ready-to-go solution, let's say. And I'll talk about how you can get up and running with that even today if you wanted to have a go. We have a consulting and solution design team. This is the team I mentioned before, led by a chap called Carl Halsdorf in our team, in partnership with Glenn Fitzgerald, our CTO, and our CTO office, to help you get best value from the solutions we deploy. And then we have a set of validated infrastructures, and private AI SUSE AI would certainly fit in this realm for us as well, which is let's say, approved platform infrastructure and software stack to run various large language models depending on your preference. Very, very interesting, and Glenn mentioned this also in the keynote, but I would really make this point. We have what we call the test drive, the AI test drive, available in the UK and Germany, where everything we're talking about today, as well as actually most SUSE products, are available to test and try, completely free of charge. So we give you a login. As Glenn said, we have to schedule the logins because we have so many proof of concepts at the moment. But you can start playing with this, and what we show with Private GPT, you can have a go with as well. And I think that's really important as to how we take this to market. And also, as Glenn said today, we do this in combination with our ecosystem. So whilst we include the large language model and the GUIs within the Fujitsu solution, we do this in partnership with a number of partners here in Germany. So this is really an ecosystem-driven solution. So it's not all delivered and created by Fujitsu. So, enough preamble. So Private GPT, what it is. As I said, it's a full stack solution, so it comes with everything you need. It is on premises, protected for the reasons I talked about before. But the key things here is the way we can help manage the data sources. And you can see here, you can create user profiles. You can actually link Private GPT directly to your Active Directory, if you so wish, to take user profiles exactly as you want them. So you can decide who in your organization can view which documentation. And this is particularly important. Again, I will continue to use this law example, where you might have some sensitive information, some sensitive documents only available to certain people. But also, we see use cases where customers want to spin up small working groups on particular cases, for instance, with a subset of the documentation relevant to that case. And that can also be done using the system. This decoupling, so as I said, we use a Mistral large language model on our platform, but the data you upload to Private GPT sits within the vector database. So we really make a distinction between what the large language model knows and the data that you upload, which means that you can keep in control of updating your data. So if you upload something to the vector database that you decide is out of date after a few months or weeks, you just delete it, and no problem. And then we don't have this issue of hallucinations. you can stay really in control of the data that's being used. And I'll show this as well when we talk about it. Complete stack, I think I mentioned this. I mean, I would be very concrete. This is really one server for these 300 concurrent users. You could put this in your basement if you so wanted to. But we really keep this as lightweight as possible to get people started as quickly as possible. So we really, and the customization, of course it can be customized. We try and pre-make as much as we can for fast deployment. But the GUI you're going to see, if there's some changes you would like or need, I mean, logos and colors and these things, as well as ideas for future roadmap developments, very, very open. I would say come and have a look on our stand and speak to our team if there are things that you would have in mind and use cases. And what we enable here is to make faster, more accurate decisions and access the knowledge easily for people in the company. And we always start with this question, and I think this is why we have so many proof of concepts here, is because I think everybody wants to answer this question. So if you could chat to your company data, what would be your first question? And this, in our experience, really gets people thinking, because most people have an idea of this, an answer to this, and this is then basically formulating the proof of concepts that we then take to market. So let me show you what this looks like. I know you were promised a live demo, but it is a canned demo because I'm not brave enough to do a live demo in front of this size audience. So this is what it looks like. This is the GUI. You can see here, we're just typing in a question, so you can see the document stores that are being used, admin and develop. This is what it would look like if you started testing. So we ask it, what is the Fujitsu Private GPT solution? And it will now give us an answer based on the documentation that's been uploaded to this test system. We also have a robot on our stand, by the way, who's also trained on this information that you can actually talk to. I'll show this in a second on a video. So as it's generating this response, you can see here how simple we try and make this GUI. So PDFs, analytics, administration, all very, very simple to use. Critically here, you can see the sources that it used. So, and you can double-click on these pages, and it will take you to the information that the model used to find the answer. And really, that's important because that's where the people come in, very importantly, to make sure that this is correct and it's not, giving you the wrong answer. And there we go again, we ask another question. This is, the team put this together to make sure I didn't lie to you, I think. So some of the key benefits, some of which we've talked about. And it will just go through this. One other thing here, you can see the chat language on the top left. So this is running in English. And you can see by the asterisks that the model is trained in English, but you can then use the translation within the engine to translate the output into any language or a number of languages that we have available. So here is the answer. Again, the sources. So you could go now and look at these sources, and that can be anything that you've uploaded. And now, just to show that data, the ability to control the data you use, we'll just show you one other thing when it catches up here. So this is what we mean by documents context. So this is the differentiation between the model answering your question based on your document stores and the intelligence in the large language model. So if we turn off document context and we ask the question I asked before coming to Berlin, so what is there to do in Berlin on a weekend? That's fun. And this now will use all knowledge available to the model, inclusive of what the large language model was trained on that we are using in the system. So it will give you, I think it gives you 10 things. So anyone who's around for a while, maybe this is a good one to take a photo of. It'll give you some ideas of things to do in Berlin. But you'll notice there's a tell here that this is using the large language model and not the up-to-date data sources, because after it's finished giving you the 10, it will give you a little warning about COVID-19 restrictions, because this model is not 100% up-to-date today. So a little look back to the past. Now, if we turn on document context, I think you know what's going to happen here, but let's go through. And we ask the same question now, only relying on the information in our database, not the large language model. We ask the question. It will now not give you the answer. And this is really, really critical in the customer cases that we've seen to make sure that we don't have these hallucinations that we were discussing in the keynote. Because there can be cases where the information in the large language model might contradict what you have in your document stores, and we want to avoid this. And then so you can, with this functionality, make sure that the users that are using the system are getting answers directly relevant to the documentation that you want them to get answers on. So yeah. Peter, over to you.
So yeah, I basically what we have seen And what we see is the same use case. So basically, you don't have to go all through this path. You can jump directly into Fujitsu Private GPT or SUSE Private AI. And in the case of SUSE Private AI, you will be able to apply those RAG capabilities, so uploading your data, do it with a click, selecting your documents, and also being able to configure which is the weight you give to your documents or to the model, including not allowing the model to go to the internet to search for the content. So you will have those options. And if you were in the keynote, I already covered that it can be run with no internet connection for the most restrictive use cases, the same as Fujitsu GPT. Yes, so basically this is the list of the key aspects that we have already covered. So basically you can have control over data and very scalable and flexible solution starting small and integrates with the best of our open source solutions and is modular. This is the architecture, and you are going to see this in Demopalooza tomorrow. So you will see the demo running, and you will see a type of interface that is intuitive, is in black. That is another difference. We put the interface in, but it can be white if you prefer it. And you will be able to see how the solution plays, how you can select different models. And I don't know if there is any other comments, but basically this is the similar example. So I covered this already, and for me there is a key aspect which is compliance. We already said that, but I would like to insist in the fact that both solutions lower the risk in compliance because they are going to be able to run locally and in a private way. So that really saves a lot of time in terms of validation and also in terms of disappointment when something really gets data exported to third parties you don't know or personal data exported to another part of the planet. We find use cases like links of your data in seconds, like we have seen, customized solutions, customer service insights, or give everyone an AI assistant. So at the moment, it's difficult to say or to mention departments that don't receive repetitive questions. And if you have an assistant, you save so much time in emails, which I guess you always have an email pending to be responded. At least that has been my story for the last years.
And then just to give a little bit of extra context of some of the cases we really see at the moment. And actually, this is one of two slides. So we really have cases, proof of concepts live in almost every industry at the moment. I think because of how this question, in terms of if you could talk to your data, what would you ask? Everybody is coming up with ideas. To give just two examples, maybe on this one, software development, which is a very traditional use case for generative AI in terms of writing code. But we have a slightly different one here. So we're working with a global retail software company who create a lot of customized versions of their code for their individual customers. And what they would ideally like to do is not have double work, creating all of the same custom code for multiple customers. So what they're using our systems for at the moment is to see if they can find similar code that's been created for different use cases in other customers that they could then reuse in customers that currently have asks. So trying to find the links in the data, to use to the point before. This is a very interesting one. And these are the kind of things that ROI-wise are total no-brainers and can save a lot of money in companies. And the other interesting one is the DIY store. I know nothing about DIY, to be totally honest, with the group. But what the customer here is doing, they're a wholesaler for DIY equipment. And they're using the model to put together their individual products. And today, this would be done by their sales teams, who can suggest certain paints with certain wood or whatever it may be. And this can do that for them. So in the first instance, that's kind of acts as one of these co-pilots to help their salespeople be more productive. And again, sort of level the knowledge, as I mentioned in the earlier example, so that everyone has access to the same knowledge. But eventually, when that works internally and they know how to deploy this, that is also solutions you can then have directly to end customers. So you can even add a direct to, in their case, other businesses sort of approach. But I guess everybody in the room now, you probably already have done it, but you can probably think of 10 more use cases for your individual environments, or if you're a partner, your customers that could utilize this kind of technology, and that would really be the step. And we can share far more details on things we're seeing at the moment. If you're in a particular vertical, we can help with some of the idea creation if you so require. But they would be the cases I would share now. And this was just one little bit of fun, actually. We had a customer meeting last week, and any of you who have been to the Fujitsu stand would have seen this little fella on our stand. This is a company called Fur Hat Robotics, who essentially build these very, very lifelike models. We integrate this with our private GPT, and essentially, if you click, you can talk with this thing. If you click one more time, it should play the video.
Enthusiast. What brings
See if
you
you
to
can
the
recognize
wild
the voice.
today?
I would like to know more
Not this
about the
voice, the other one.
dolphins around Australia.
The dolphins of Australia are truly remarkable creatures. Did you know they can use tools to forage for food?
Absolutely didn't know that. Tell me more about it.
Well, you see, these clever cetaceans have been observed using sponges to protect their rostrums while foraging on the sea floor. Quite inventive, don't you think?
Absolutely. And in which age do they learn that?
The young dolphins start learning this behavior from their mothers at a very early age. Isn't that just delightful?
Very delightful. Thank you very much.
I would really say, take a walk past the Fujitsu stand, you'll see this robot, and the eyes are always scanning. And yesterday I was playing a little bit with it, that if you stand just to the side of it, it will then look at you and start talking to you and asking a question. And actually, I think I saw Fabian in the audience. We were having a conversation yesterday about one of the other solutions we're working on, and he's listening, and he's giving us advice about how to work with Scrum and doing all sorts of other things. So it's got to be maybe careful what you're discussing next to the stand. But this, as well as being a bit of a toy, this is also an incredibly powerful deployment of this technology. If you think about, customer service environments, care homes, medical sort of environments, where actually the face, the humanization of these models are quite important for the people using them. And this is incredibly scary and lifelike. I would definitely say take a look.
Right, and this is how, an example, Lee mentioned legal companies, and this is an example how you can have your clients' data, emails, and instead of compiling everything manually and comparing documents, versions, you can really have the solution, you can ask the solution and it can reply. Basically, for example, the difference between the one documents or other documents, or what a person has said on emails, or a summary of all the emails from that person, or even the summary right now, and extract that type of information, changes in legal frameworks, or if we are talking about a merchant acquisition, what we have from those emails conversations. So this is really saving a lot of time and adding a lot of insights for everyone who needs to keep confidential information and manage that information and create all types of information analysis. And at AI, we envision a different AI, a human-first AI, where even internally at SUSE, we put the human in the center. And as I mentioned, the benefit of AI is time savings, but that is a benefit. The value of AI is what we do with that time. And we do not remove tasks. We don't remove jobs. We remove tasks. So basically, we create aspirational goals as we deploy AI in order to achieve more growth applying humanity. And those goals are defined and are involving the employees, the departments, align with what the employees believe they can do with, things that are motivating and that are going to add value to the business. And if you think about AI in the early days, it was like that. It was return of investment on value. It was not only focusing on efficiencies like it is now. So we have this type of balance where we put the human in the center.
And it's very, when we were preparing this presentation, that's exactly the approach that we also take and would recommend. And it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but to everybody we work with on this topic, we say, do not blindly trust generative AI, because this is not the way forward. You need to trust the people you are working with to generate the generative AI models that are useful for your business. And this is just a collection of a few of the Fujitsu team that are working on this topic today. A lot of these are even here today, definitely a couple. Glenn's on here, for instance, plus a few others. Jochen, just in the middle here with the grey jacket, is giving a speech tomorrow to dive into some more technical details of our solution. So these are the people behind it, right? And for us, that's the key thing. And also looking back at the partnership we have with SUSE and the reason that we collaborated with SUSE on this project is because of the partnership and because of the people. And we heard a little bit of this during the keynote. But that would be another takeaway I would really suggest is trust the team you are working on generative AI, because the solution it gives you, if you're going to rely on it, then it needs to be very good. And I think there's just one other page on the test drive. So just make this point again one more time, just with a slightly more detail. So the two test drives we have, as mentioned a couple of times, one is hosted with our partner Sixtera in the UK, and one is in the NTT data center, I think in Frankfurt in Germany. And it really is an open offer. If you want to test these technologies, private GPT, or just generally different infrastructure platforms and software platforms, as you're starting to look at how you deploy this technology, it really is an open offer. Completely free of charge. All you need to do is get in contact and we set you up here with whatever it is that you would like to test. So please take us up on it. So far we found this extremely helpful with customers.
Yeah, and SUSE AI will be available on Fujitsu.
SUSE AI will also be available on the test drive. That's correct, completely correct. We're working on getting it on there now, and again, that will be a free of charge way to access that software stack and technology as well.
Yeah. And then we have SUSE AI Early Access Program. So basically the opportunity to work with SUSE experts on SUSE AI and supported by SUSE. So we can also have your voice on shaping the future of SUSE AI. And this program will include first of all, your voice and your views. That is the first point. Then the use case discovery, solution design, and the solution readiness and deployment and testing. So a full cycle in order to have you up and running. And this is the QR to apply to the program. So would you like to provide the summary?
Yeah, I can do. So the first one I think is the most important. If you haven't done so already, the use case you would like to consider is the first thing to talk about, is the first thing to think about. It comes to that question, if you could talk to your data, what would you ask? If you can answer that or give us a clue, we can help you tune that and turn that into something that could be a real proof of concept that you can either run on our systems or we can help you build. The test drive and the early adopter program are then the formal ways to initiate proof of concepts with Fujitsu and SUSE. So talk to us. We have a lot of people here, Fujitsu. So I think after SUSE, we have the most people here. So we really take this seriously. There's a lot of expertise at your disposal on our stand and around the event, so please talk to us. Come to the session tomorrow for some more details as well. And thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.